little bitty boy, my grandmother bought me a cute little toy. Silver bells hanging on a string. She told me it was my ding-a-ling-a-ling, oh.
What to say about this one? Well, maybe I'll start by saying that, believe it or not, this was Chuck Berry's only ever Billboard Hot 100 #1 hit. That's right, not Johnny B. Good, not Maybelline, not rock and roll music, but My Ding-a-Ling. I swear, sometimes the taste of the general public is quite distressing. The song is not a Chuck Berry original. This song was originally written and recorded way back in 1952 by a guy called Dave Bartholomew. And there are quite a few differences. Bartholomew's version adds a goofy shave and a haircut theme in the beginning. Da 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 da. Bum bum is perfect for a silly song such as this. And the lyrics have changed quite a bit as well. Let's just say Bartholomew's version is more of a couples thing, whereas Chuck Berry has turned it into an ode to self-gratification. Berry's version was recorded at an event called the Lanchester Arts Festival, which took place on February 3rd, 1972 in Coventry, England. Now, Berry was topping a bill that included, get this, Slade, George Carlin, Billy Preston, and Pink Floyd. Now, I don't know who dreamed that bill up, but I kind of wish I had been there. A single DJ by the name of Jim Connors from radio station WMEX in Boston is largely credited with pushing this song to #1. He promoted it heavily on his own station and also promoted it among his fellow DJs around the country. He even received a gold record in recognition of his efforts. Not surprisingly, a song that was basically one big sexual double entendre faced calls for censorship in 1972. Many radio stations refused to play it, and in the UK, it was the target of infamous morality campaigner Mary Whitehouse. I'm sure many Americans are not familiar with her. In case you're wondering, in the Pink Floyd song Pigs, Three Different Kinds on the Animals album, when Roger Waters yells out, "Hey you, Whitehouse," he's not railing against the US president, he's railing against Mary Whitehouse. So all in all, yeah, I'd say this qualifies as an unlikely #1. I think few could have predicted that a live recording of a little ditty about self-gratification, and sung to the tune, by the way, of an old 19th century folk song called Little Brown Jug, would have topped the charts in 1972. It's hard to believe, but in 1963, a song sung entirely in Japanese, originally entitled Ui o Muite Aruko, but retitled as Sukiyaki for the American market, we'll talk about that in a moment, hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, a spot it would hold for 3 weeks. But that's only part of the story. This song, sung by Japanese crooner Q Sakamoto, reached #1 in multiple countries around the world and has gone on to become one of the greatest selling singles of all time with sales of over 13 million. The song was first released in Japan in 1961. The lyrics by Rokusuke Ei and music by Hachidai Nakamura. I'm sure the pronunciation is mangled on all of these names, but I'm just giving it my best shot. The lyrics are pretty incredible. The Japanese title translates to "I look up as I walk," And the protagonist in the song literally is looking up as he walks along in an attempt to prevent the tears from streaming down his face. What an incredible line, so much pathos in that image. But here's the weird part. The initial inspiration for the song was, get this, a U.S.-Japan security treaty that AE was vehemently opposed to, so much so that he attended an organized protest against it in 1960. And walking home from this protest, he was so upset and frustrated that he began to weep. Now, obviously, songs about international treaties don't tend to do too well on the pop music charts, so AE wisely channeled his angst into a song about the universal theme of lost love. Happiness lies above the clouds, happiness lies above the sky. I look up as I walk so that the tears will not fall. But the tears well up as I walk, for tonight I am all alone. At the time, the song's huge success was seen as a metaphor for the emerging post-World War II expansion of Japan onto the global scene. Remember that in 1961, we were only about 16 years removed from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, as for the song's American title, as I'm sure most of you know, Sukiyaki is a Japanese hot pot dish containing beef, vegetables, tofu, noodles, etc., which of course has absolutely nothing to do with the song's subject matter, but some genius in marketing, I suppose, determined that it sounded very Japanese. It was probably one of the few Japanese words that many Americans would be familiar with, so they tacked it on there, and obviously it worked pretty well. Although one Newsweek columnist came up with a hilarious comparison, writing that it was essentially equivalent to recording a Japanese language version of Moon River and calling it beef stew.
We're so sorry, Uncle Albert. We're so sorry if we caused you any pain. We're so sorry.
I think Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey is really interesting in that, unlike most songs that appear in videos like this, it's not an obvious novelty song like My Ding-a-Ling. It's not sung in a foreign language. It's just freaking weird. I mean, that's about the only way I can describe it. Think about this song and think about how few number one hits are this quirky and odd. Released in August of 1971, this was McCartney's first solo number one hit post-Beatles. It was pieced together from a series of several unrelated and unfinished song fragments that McCartney had lying around with the help of Swedish producer Eirik Wannberg. For those of you who might not be as familiar with this song, let's listen together through some of its various oddities. Now, we've already heard the intro, the main Uncle Albert theme. Nothing too unusual about that. Just a very pretty little melody, the kind of thing McCartney just seems to be able to crank out at will. But let's see what happens next.
But there's no one left at home, and I believe I'm gonna rain.
So we get the thunderstorm sounds. Kind of unusual, not unheard of. I'm reminded of Riders on the Storm by The Doors, released the same year. George Martin's string arrangement there.
We're so sorry, but we haven't heard a thing.
We're going to listen more in just a second, but I want to mention that the title came from Paul's real-life Uncle Albert, and the line, "We're so sorry, Uncle Albert," was Paul's way of saying that he understood how the older generation, such as his Uncle Albert, might disapprove of the way his generation handled things. Kind of interesting. Now, in a moment, we're going to hear the sound of a telephone ringing, but it's not a telephone ringing. It's Paul imitating the sound of a telephone with his voice, brr, brr, sort of thing. Then we're going to hear the sound of the phone being picked up, but again, it's Paul. And then we're going to hear Paul in this bizarre, posh English voice, not his usual Scouse accent, having a conversation with Uncle Albert himself.
But if anything should happen,
We'll be sure to hear the ring. Great little guitar bit in the background there. Linda very prominent in the background. So again, I ask you, how many number one hits have odd little vignettes like this contained in them, unless they're other McCartney songs, right? Things like Band on the Run, Jet, and Live and Let Die, for example, are also structured very unusually. Now, in a moment, we're going to get to the Admiral Halsey part. We're going to hear an insistent piano. We're going to hear a little trumpet bit. And once again, McCartney putting on some very bizarre voices. Of course, definite pickup in tempo as well. Listen to this bizarre whistling here. Notice the watery sound when they say water, shades of Octopus's Garden there. Check this out.
Admiral Halsey notified me he had to have a berth or he couldn't get to sea. I had another look and I had a cup of tea and a butter pie. Butter pie? The butter wouldn't melt, so put it in the pie. All right.
I mean, come on, how crazy is that? By the way, I should mention, anybody who's watched my channel knows I'm a huge McCartney fan, a huge Beatles fan in general. When I keep going on about how weird this is, believe me, I am not criticizing. I'm a huge fan of this song. I'm a huge fan of the Ram album in general. Critics slagged it back in the day, but of course now they're calling it the first indie rock album and praising it to the skies. Just typical music critic crap. Anyway, I always loved this from when I was a little kid and first heard this song on the radio. So we're going to hear one more part. This is the Live a Little, Be a Gypsy, Get Around part. Clearly this was from another song fragment, completely different than what's gone before. And like all the rest, just weirdly wonderful, in my opinion.
Heads across the sky. Live a little, be a gypsy, get around. Get around. Get your feet up off the ground. Live a little, get around. Live a little, be a gypsy, get around.
By the way, Admiral Halsey is also a real person, although not one that McCartney knew. He was an American admiral of the late 19th and early 20th century. And the hands across the water line was a reference to Paul and Linda and the fact that at this point they were sort of living in two worlds between Scotland and the US. Now, you put all that together and what does it mean? Probably nothing, but it doesn't matter because it's just a really fun ride.
Er war ein Punker und er lebte in der großen Stadt. Es war in Wien, war Vienna, wo er alles tat. Er hatte Schulden, denn er trank, doch ihn liebten alle Frauen. Und jede rief, na come on, rock me Amadeus. Er war super.
Well, lest anyone get the idea that weird number ones are a phenomenon only of the 1960s and 70s, we now jump to the mid-1980s for Rock Me Amadeus by Austrian pop star Falco, which reached number one on the Billboard Hot 100 on March 29th, 1986. Taken from Falco's third album, Falco 3, released in 1985, Rock Me Amadeus was written by Falco in collaboration with Dutch music producers Bolland and Bolland, and is the only German language song to hit number one on the Billboard Hot 100 ever. Now, I mentioned this fact to my wife, and the first thing she said was, what about Nina and 99 Luftballons, which was also a very big hit. So, of course, I had to look it up. Turns out Nina got very close with Luftballons in 1983. It did make it to number one on the Cashbox chart, but it only hit number two on the Billboard chart. It's no secret that many unconventional number one hits really piggyback off some pop culture phenomenon of the time. Often it's a film, just one of many examples. The Star Wars theme Cantina Band song hit number one in 1977 at the height of the initial Star Wars mania. Well, I don't think it's controversial to say that Rock Me Amadeus wouldn't have been nearly the phenomenon that it was if it hadn't been for the popular film Amadeus, which had been released in September of 1984, won tons of awards. It was hugely popular in America. That film really touched off a period of Mozart mania. It was really something else. Now, when that song was released, I was working at a record store. Sadly, it wasn't one of the cool record stores like Tower Records or anything. I worked at Musicland, which was next to the McDonald's in the local mall, but it definitely beat Slinging Burgers at the time. Anyway, I sold many copies of Rock Me Amadeus in my day, and I distinctly remember one moment. Little kid walks in, probably about 9 or 10 years old. Somebody put Rock Me Amadeus on the record store sound system. The kid lost his mind. Rock Me Amadeus, and starts freaking out because he loved the song so much. And even then, I remember thinking to myself, how crazy is it that this little kid would be so excited over a song about this 18th century classical musician, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Several different remixes of this song were produced, but the one that became a big hit in the States featured a goofy English language voiceover in the beginning, spoken by a producer named Rick McCulloch, which basically gave a little historical timeline of Mozart's life. And here again, this is the kind of thing that would have bored little kids to death in history class, but suddenly it somehow became cool. Let's listen to that one.
Rock me, Amadeus.
1756, Salzburg, January 27. Wolfgang Amadeus is born. 1761, at the age of 5, Amadeus begins composing. 1773, he writes his first piano concerto. 1782, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart marries Constance Weber. 1784, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart becomes a Freemason. 1791, Mozart composes the Magic Flute. On December 5th of that same year, Mozart dies. 1985, Austrian rock singer Falco records Rock Me Amadeus!
I love the way Falco includes Rock Me Amadeus itself at the end of the timeline. And you know, I think just having that spoken word English bit in the beginning made the whole thing a bit more palatable to English speakers who had no idea what was being said in the main body of the song, the German part. By the way, when you translate that into English, the lyrics are basically just about how Mozart was kind of a rock star in his day, which he was. For example, here's the first verse rendered in English. He was a punk and lived in the big city. It was in Vienna where he did everything. He had debts because he drank, but women all loved him anyway. And everyone shouted, "Now come and rock me, Amadeus." He really was a rock star. So yeah, all in all, I think this is yet another one that qualifies as a truly bizarre number one, the likes of which we will probably never see again. So that's what I've got for this time. This is a cool topic, I think. Let me know what you guys think. And I know you will not disappoint in the comments. You guys never do. I'm sure you'll let me know what you think are some of the most bizarre number ones. There's a chance I might have considered them. Obviously, I've limited myself to 4 here. So tons of great candidates were left off, but I'll probably do more on this subject. Finally, please consider, if you're so inclined, a financial contribution. You can go to the description in the video to see the various methods for that. Those are hugely appreciated. All right, see you next time.